You feel it, an emptiness, not sadness exactly, not depression precisely, but a void, an absence at the center of existence that no amount of activity, achievement, or acquisition seems to fill. You felt this void in moments of quiet, in spaces between distractions, in the aftermath of accomplishments that were supposed to satisfy but didn't. The void is always there, waiting beneath the surface of your busy life, and you've spent enormous energy trying to fill it, fix it, make it go away. The void is not metaphor, it's experiential reality, the felt sense that something is missing, that existence has a hole in it, that you're empty in ways that shouldn't be empty. Pascal called it the God-shaped hole. Existentialists call it the absurd or nothingness. Buddhists call it sunyata or emptiness. Different traditions name it differently, but they're pointing to the same phenomenon, the fundamental emptiness that seems to be at the core of human existence. The void reveals itself in specific moments. You achieve the goal you've been working toward for years, and instead of satisfaction, you feel nothing, emptiness. The achievement was supposed to fill the void, but the void remains unchanged, indifferent to your accomplishment. Or you're in a relationship, surrounded by people, engaged in conversation, and suddenly you feel profoundly alone, profoundly empty, despite the connection. The void is there, beneath and beyond the connection. The void appears after pleasure ends. The meal is finished. The orgasm fades, the entertainment concludes, and what's left is emptiness. The pleasure was supposed to be fulfillment, but it was just temporary distraction from the void, and now the distraction is over and the void returns, patient, permanent, waiting. The person experiencing the void thinks something is wrong with them. Everyone else seems fulfilled, satisfied, complete, but you have this emptiness, this sense that something fundamental is missing. Maybe you're broken, maybe you're depressed, maybe you need therapy, medication, spiritual awakening, different job, different relationship. But the void is not personal problem. It's existential condition. Everyone has the void. They've just become better at distracting from it, denying it, or mistaking temporary void filling for permanent void elimination. The void is not your unique pathology. It's fundamental feature of conscious existence, and you've simply become more aware of it than people who are more successfully distracted. Different people describe the void differently. Some feel it as boredom. Nothing seems interesting. Nothing captures attention. Nothing satisfies. Some feel it as loneliness. Even surrounded by people, they feel fundamentally alone, disconnected, isolated. Some feel it as meaninglessness. Nothing seems to matter. Nothing has significance. Nothing feels important. Some feel it as restlessness, constantly needing to do something, go somewhere, achieve something, because stillness reveals the void. The workaholic feels the void as need to stay busy. If they stop working, the void appears, so they work constantly, fill every moment with productive activity. Avoid stillness where void becomes apparent. The work isn't really about achievement. It's about void avoidance. The moment the work stops, the void is there, which is why they can never stop working. The consumer feels the void as need to acquire. If they stop shopping, the void appears, so they consume constantly, fill every moment with purchasing, avoid empty hands where void becomes tangible. The consumption isn't really about needing things, it's about void filling. The moment the consumption stops, the void is there, which is why they can never have enough. The pleasure seeker feels the void as need for stimulation. If they stop seeking pleasure, the void appears, so they pursue entertainment constantly, fill every moment with sensation, avoid quiet where void becomes audible. The pleasure isn't really about enjoyment, it's about void distraction. The moment the pleasure ends, the void is there, which is why they need constant stimulation. The spiritual seeker feels the void as need for meaning. If they stop searching for significance, the void appears, so they pursue enlightenment constantly, fill every moment with practice, avoid ordinariness where void becomes obvious. The spirituality isn't really about awakening, it's about void denial. The moment the seeking stops, the void is there, which is why they can never be satisfied with where they are. These are all attempts to fill the void, to eliminate the emptiness, to make the absence become presence. The strategies differ: work, consumption, pleasure, spirituality. But the underlying impulse is identical. The void is problem to be solved, hole to be filled, absence to be made present. If you just find the right thing to fill it with, the void will disappear and you'll finally feel complete, whole, satisfied. But here's the recognition that changes everything. The void is not waiting to be filled. It's not a hole, not a problem, not an absence that should be presence. The void is just what's there, the fundamental emptiness at the core of existence that is not deficiency requiring remedy, but basic feature of being conscious in universe that doesn't provide inherent meaning, purpose, or significance. The void is not your enemy. It's not pathology. It's not even really void in sense of lack. It's just the way existence is when you see it clearly, without the comforting fictions, without the meaning-making narratives, without the distractions that usually keep you from noticing. The void is reality, and trying to fill it is trying to make reality something other than what it is. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider that you've spent enormous energy trying to fill something that can't be filled because it's not actually empty. The void is not whole in your life requiring filling. It's the nature of life itself, the background against which all experience occurs, the emptiness that makes fullness possible by being what fullness appears against. You can stop trying to fill it. You can stop searching for what isn't there. You can rest in the void that you've been fleeing. The comfort, if there is comfort, comes from recognizing that the void is not your personal failure to achieve fulfillment. It's not sign that you're broken, that you need fixing, that you're doing life wrong. The void is structural feature of conscious existence, and accepting it is more restful than endlessly trying to eliminate it through achievement, consumption, connection, or meaning-making. The void is here, permanent and patient, and tonight you can stop running from it. The meaning-making machine, trying to fill the void with significance. You try to fill the void with meaning. If you can just find the right purpose, the right mission, the right cause, then the emptiness will disappear and your life will feel full, significant, worthwhile. Your meaning-making machine, constantly generating narratives about why your life matters, what it's for, what significance it has. And the meanings keep failing to fill the void because meaning is story you tell about void, not substance that fills it. The person searching for their purpose is trying to fill void with significance. They believe there's a reason they exist, a purpose they're meant to fulfill, a specific role in cosmic plan. If they can just discover this purpose, everything will make sense. The emptiness will be replaced by meaning. They'll know why they're here, and that knowledge will fill the void. But the purpose never quite materializes. They try different potential purposes. Maybe it's this career, this relationship, this creative project, this cause. Each one seems like it might be the purpose, the thing they're meant to do, the answer to why they exist. They commit to it, invest in it, believe in it, and it works for a while. The void seems filled, the meaning seems real, the purpose seems clear. Then the purpose reveals itself as just another story. The career is just work, not cosmic mission. The relationship is just two people together, not destiny. The creative project is just making things, not fulfilling purpose. The cause is just one problem among infinite problems, not the reason you exist. The meaning you created is seen as creation, as narrative you imposed, not truth you discovered. And the void returns, unchanged by your meaning-making. The person who keeps finding and losing their purpose is experiencing how meaning-making fails to fill void. Each new purpose promises to be the real one, the one that will finally satisfy, finally make sense of existence. And each purpose eventually reveals itself as temporary meaning imposed on permanent meaninglessness. The void isn't filled by meaning. It's just temporarily covered by meaning, and the covering eventually wears through. Different meaning frameworks promise to fill the void differently. Religion says your life has divine purpose. You're here to serve God, save your soul, fulfill holy plan. The void is lack of connection to divine, and religious practice fills it by establishing that connection. You matter because God cares about you. Your life has meaning because it's part of God's plan. The void should disappear when you find faith. The person who converts to religion hoping to fill void with divine meaning discovers that faith doesn't eliminate emptiness. It just reframes it. The void becomes spiritual dryness, dark night of soul, distance from God. The emptiness is still there, now interpreted through religious framework, prayer, worship, service. These are meaning-making activities that provide temporary sense of significance, but don't eliminate fundamental void. Secular meaning-making tries different approach. Your life has meaning through your contributions to humanity, your relationships, your creative works, your impact on others. You matter because you help people, because you create value, because you leave the world better than you found it. The void should disappear when you find meaningful work, meaningful relationships, meaningful life. The person dedicating themselves to meaningful causes discovers that significance doesn't fill void either. They help people, the void remains. They create value, the void is unchanged. They build legacy, the void is indifferent. The meaningfulness of their actions is real, in social sense, but doesn't touch the existential void. The emptiness persists beneath and beyond the meaningful activities. Personal meaning-making is latest strategy. Your life has the meaning you give it. You create your own purpose, define your own significance, make your own meaning. The void should disappear when you take responsibility for creating meaning rather than trying to discover pre-existing meaning. You're author of your life's significance. The person enthusiastically creating personal meaning discovers this is most exhausting meaning-making of all. Now they're not just trying to live meaningful life, they're responsible for creating the meaning itself. Every moment requires meaning-making. Every activity needs significance assigned to it. They're constantly generating narratives, creating purposes, manufacturing significance, and beneath all the meaning-making, the void remains, patiently waiting. The existentialists say meaning comes from authentic choices, from living in accordance with values you've consciously chosen. Create meaning through authentic existence, through taking responsibility for freedom, through choosing who you'll be. The void, which they call nothingness or the absurd, is confronted through authentic meaning-making. But authentic meaning-making still doesn't fill the void. Sartre acknowledged this. Even authentic existence occurs against background of absurdity, of fundamental meaninglessness, that authentic choices don't eliminate. You can live authentically and still feel the void. The authenticity provides integrity, but not fullness. The void remains even in authentic existence, because void isn't sign of inauthentic living, it's condition of living at all. Different types of meaning address different aspects of void, but none eliminate it. Your work provides productive meaning, you're doing something useful. Your relationships provide connective meaning, you matter to others. Your hobbies provide enjoyable meaning, you find pleasure in activities. Your spirituality provides transcendent meaning, you're part of something larger. But the void isn't partial, it's total. Filling parts of it doesn't fill the whole. The person with meaningful work, loving relationships, enjoyable hobbies, and deep spirituality still feels the void. They've succeeded at every type of meaning-making. Their life is objectively meaningful by every standard, and yet the void, the emptiness beneath all the meaning, the sense that something is still missing, despite having everything that's supposed to provide meaning. The void is not lack of meaning, it's something else entirely. The void is not meaning-shaped. It's not the absence of significance that would be filled by presence of significance. It's more fundamental than meaning. Adding meaning to life is like adding water to desert. The water is real, provides real benefit, but doesn't transform desert into not desert. The desert remains desert, and the void remains void, regardless of how much meaning you pour into it. The recognition is difficult. Your life can be meaningful, and you can still feel the void. The void is not problem that meaning solves. Meaning-making is human activity that makes life more bearable, more purposeful, more significant. But it doesn't fill the void because the void isn't waiting to be filled with meaning. The void is prior to meaning, beneath meaning, beyond meaning. Can you stop trying to fill the void with meaning? Can you accept that life can be meaningful without the void disappearing? Can you make meaning while acknowledging that meaning-making is human activity you do in presence of void, not solution that eliminates void? The acceptance would mean continuing to make meaning, continuing to value your work, your relationships, your activities, while releasing the expectation that meaning will fill the void. The meaning is valuable for its own sake, not because it's supposed to eliminate existential emptiness. You work meaningfully while the void persists. You love meaningfully while the void remains. You live meaningfully in presence of permanent void. Tonight, you can rest from meaning-making, from trying to craft purpose that will fill the void, from generating significance that will eliminate emptiness. The void doesn't need meaning to fill it. The void just is, beneath and beyond all your meaning-making, unchanged by your purposes. Tonight, you can let the meanings rest and sit with the void they've been covering. The emptiness is still there, and it's okay that it's there. Achievement addiction. Trying to fill the void with accomplishment. You try to fill the void with achievement. If you can just accomplish enough, achieve enough, succeed enough, then the emptiness will be replaced with satisfaction of accomplishment. You set goals, work toward them, achieve them, and briefly, very briefly, the void seems filled. Then the satisfaction fades, the void returns, and you need new goal, new achievement, new accomplishment. You're achievement addict, and the addiction is attempt to fill void that achievement can't fill. The person constantly setting new goals immediately after achieving old goals is experiencing how achievement-based void-filling creates addiction cycle. Achieve goal, brief satisfaction, void returns. Set new goal, work toward it, achieve it, brief satisfaction, void returns. The cycle accelerates. Goals need to be bigger, achievements need to be greater, accomplishments need to be more impressive, because the void is not actually being filled, so the dose of achievement needed for even temporary void covering keeps increasing. The achievement was supposed to provide lasting fulfillment. You worked for years toward this goal. You sacrificed, struggled, pushed through obstacles. You finally achieved it, and the achievement should have filled the void permanently. You did the thing. You succeeded. You accomplished what you set out to accomplish. The void should be gone now. But the void doesn't care about your achievements. You got the degree. Void remains. You got the promotion. Void is unchanged. You built the business. Void is indifferent. You won the award. Void persists. The achievements are real, objectively impressive, worthy of pride, but they don't touch the void because the void is not achievement-shaped gap. It's not absence of accomplishment that would be filled by accomplishment's presence. The person exhausted from constant achievement who can't stop achieving is trapped by achievement addiction. They recognize the pattern, achieve, feel briefly satisfied, feel void return, need to achieve again. They see how accomplishment doesn't lastingly satisfy, but they can't stop achieving because stopping means facing void without the distraction of working toward achievement. The achievement itself doesn't fill void, but pursuing achievement keeps them too busy to notice void. Different types of achievement promise to fill void differently. Professional achievement says your worth comes from career success. If you climb high enough, accomplish enough professionally, the void will be filled by sense of professional accomplishment. You'll be someone, you'll have succeeded, you'll be able to point to career achievements as evidence of worthwhile existence. The person who achieves professional success, the prestigious job, the high salary, the impressive title, discovers that professional achievement creates professional satisfaction but doesn't fill existential void. They're professionally successful and existentially empty. The two aren't related. The void doesn't care about your job title. Professional achievement is achievement in professional domain, but void is not professional problem requiring professional solution. Athletic achievement promises to fill void through physical accomplishment. Run the marathon, climb the mountain, complete the triathlon, push your body to limits, achieve physical goals, prove your strength and endurance. The achievement should provide sense of bodily accomplishment that fills void. The person who completes grueling physical challenges discovers that athletic achievement provides athletic satisfaction but doesn't eliminate void. Finishing marathon is achievement in athletic domain. The void is in existential domain. Running 26.2 miles doesn't fill void because void is not absence of miles run. The accomplishment is real, but irrelevant to the emptiness. Creative achievement promises different void filling. Create something, write the book, paint the painting, compose the music. Bring something into existence that didn't exist before. The creative achievement should fill void by making you creator, by proving you can make meaningful things, by establishing your creative worth. The person who completes creative projects discovers that creation provides creative satisfaction but leaves void untouched. Making things is different from filling void. The work exists, is real, is accomplishment, but the void is not lack of creative output that would be filled by creative production. You create prolifically while remaining empty. The creating and the emptiness coexist without the creating, eliminating the emptiness. Financial achievement promises to fill void through resource accumulation. Make enough money, achieve financial security or wealth, and the void will be filled by sense of financial accomplishment and freedom from financial anxiety. Money can't buy happiness, people say, but surely enough money fills the void that scarcity creates. The person who achieves financial success, the comfortable income, the savings, the wealth, discovers that financial achievement eliminates financial anxiety, but doesn't touch existential void. Having money is different from being fulfilled. The void is not poverty that would be filled by wealth. Rich people feel the void as acutely as poor people. They just feel it while materially comfortable, instead of while materially struggling. Social achievement promises void filling through recognition. Achieve fame, recognition, social status. Be known, be respected, be admired. The achievement should fill void by proving you matter to others, that you're significant in social sphere, that your existence has been acknowledged by community. The person who achieves social recognition discovers that being known doesn't fill void. The recognition is real. People know your name, respect your work, acknowledge your achievements. But the void is not absence of social recognition that would be filled by fame. Being known by millions doesn't make you less empty than being known by few. The social achievement exists in social domain. The void exists in existential domain. They're separate. Academic achievement promises intellectual void filling. Get the degrees, master the knowledge, become expert. The achievement should fill void through intellectual accomplishment, through mastery of field, through becoming knowledgeable person whose expertise fills space that would otherwise be empty. The person with advanced degrees discovers that knowledge doesn't fill void. They know so much, years of study, deep expertise, intellectual sophistication, but the void is not ignorance that would be filled by knowledge. Knowing things is different from being fulfilled. The intellectually accomplished person can be as empty as intellectually unaccomplished person. The void doesn't care how educated you are. The relationship achievement promises void filling through connection. Find the partner, get married, build the family. The achievement should fill void by replacing aloneness with togetherness, isolation with intimacy, emptiness with relationship fullness. The person who achieves relationship goals discovers that connection doesn't eliminate void. They have the partner, the marriage, the family. The relationships are real, loving, significant, but the void persists. The void is not loneliness that would be filled by partnership. You can be deeply connected and still feel empty. The relationship achievement fills relational needs, but doesn't touch existential void. Spiritual achievement promises ultimate void filling. Achieve enlightenment, awakening, mystical union. The achievement should fill void by eliminating the separate self that feels empty, by dissolving into oneness, by transcending the ego consciousness where void is felt. The person pursuing spiritual achievement discovers that even supposed enlightenment doesn't necessarily fill void or rather the void is recognized as fundamental emptiness that's not problem to solve but truth to accept. Buddhist emptiness teaching says the void is nature of reality, not deficiency requiring filling. The spiritual achievement might be recognizing the void accurately rather than eliminating it. All achievement-based void filling shares common pattern. Achieve the goal, feel briefly satisfied. Notice void returning. Set bigger goal, achieve that, feel briefly satisfied. Notice void returning, and so on. The achievements are real, the satisfaction is real, the void's return is real. The pattern suggests the void is not actually achievement-shaped. It's not whole that accomplishment fills, it's something else. Can you achieve without expecting achievement to fill void? Can you set goals and work toward them while acknowledging that achieving them won't eliminate existential emptiness? Can you find achievement valuable for its own sake, rather than as void-filling strategy? The acceptance would mean continuing to achieve, continuing to work toward goals, accomplish things, succeed at endeavors, while releasing expectation that achievement will fill void. The achievement is valuable for what it accomplishes in specific domain, not because it's supposed to eliminate fundamental emptiness. You achieve professionally while void persists. You achieve creatively while void remains. You achieve socially, financially, intellectually, relationally while the void continues unchanged. Tonight you can rest from achievement striving, from trying to fill void through accomplishment, from needing to achieve next goal to cover the emptiness. The void doesn't need your achievements to fill it. The void is here regardless of what you've accomplished or failed to accomplish. Tonight you can let the achievements rest and acknowledge that the void they've been failing to fill isn't achievement-shaped. The emptiness is still there, unchanged by your successes or failures, and it doesn't need fixing through further accomplishment. Consumption as void filler, buying your way to fullness. You try to fill the void with things, buy enough, acquire enough, own enough, and the emptiness will be replaced with fullness of possession. You shop, purchase, accumulate. Briefly, very briefly, the acquisition provides satisfaction. Then the thing becomes just another thing, the void returns, and you need to buy again. You're consuming endlessly in attempt to fill void that consumption can't fill. The person who feels better after shopping is experiencing how consumption temporarily covers void. The browsing, the choosing, the purchasing, the acquiring, all of it provides distraction from emptiness. The anticipation of new thing creates brief excitement. The moment of purchase creates satisfaction. The possession of new thing creates sense of having filled something at least temporarily. Then the newness fades, the thing becomes ordinary and the void returns. The consumption was supposed to provide lasting fullness. You buy the thing you've been wanting. You finally own it. The acquisition should have filled the void. You wanted it. You got it. The want that was emptiness should now be satisfied by having. The void should be gone. But the void doesn't care what you own. You buy the clothes, void remains. You buy the gadgets, void is unchanged. You buy the furniture, void is indifferent. You buy the car, void persists. The things are real, actually yours, functional and sometimes beautiful. But they don't touch the void because the void is not absence of possessions that would be filled by things owned. The person with house full of purchased things but still feeling empty is experiencing how accumulation doesn't fill void. Every purchase promised to satisfy. Every acquisition seemed like it would be the thing that finally fills the emptiness. The house fills with things while the self remains empty. The possessions increase while the void is unaffected. Different types of consumption promise to fill void differently. Status consumption says emptiness comes from lacking impressive possessions. Buy luxury goods, designer labels, expensive items. The high-status things should fill void by proving your worth, by signaling your success, by making you owner of valuable things. The void should disappear when you own right things. The person who owns luxury goods discovers that expensive things don't fill void better than cheap things. The luxury car is nicer car, not void filler. The designer clothes are well-made clothes, not emptiness eliminators. The status consumption provides status satisfaction but doesn't touch existential void. You can be materially wealthy and existentially empty. The void doesn't care about price tags. Experience consumption promises better void filling. Don't buy things, buy experiences. Travel, adventure, unique activities. The experiences should fill void by creating memories, by expanding perspective, by filling life with rich experiences rather than empty possessions. The void should disappear when you accumulate experiences rather than objects. The person who travels extensively discovers that experiences don't fill void either. The travel provides travel satisfaction, new places, new perspectives, genuine experiences. But the void is not absence of travel that would be filled by seeing world. You can visit 50 countries and remain empty. The experiences are real but irrelevant to void. The emptiness persists through all the adventures. Self-improvement consumption promises to fill void through purchasing better self. Buy the courses, the programs, the tools for transformation. The self-improvement products should fill void by helping you become better person, and better person won't feel empty. The void is a result of being inadequate, and consumption that makes you adequate should eliminate it. The person with shelves full of self-help books and unused course materials is experiencing how consuming self-improvement doesn't improve self or fill void. The products promise transformation. Buying them creates feeling of investing in better self. But the courses go untaken, the books go unread, the tools go unused, and the void remains. Consuming transformation is not same as transforming, and even transformation doesn't fill void because void is not inadequacy requiring improvement. Entertainment consumption promises to fill void through constant stimulation. Subscribe to services, access content, consume media. The entertainment should fill void by filling time, by providing enjoyment, by ensuring you're never bored. The void is emptiness of insufficient stimulation, and constant entertainment access should eliminate it. The person with unlimited entertainment access who still feels empty is experiencing how consumption of content doesn't fill void. The content is real. Movies, music, games, infinite media. But watching things is different from being fulfilled. The void is not absence of entertainment that would be filled by Netflix subscription. You can consume content 24/7 and remain fundamentally empty. The entertainment distracts from void but doesn't fill it. Relationship consumption tries to fill void through acquiring relationships. Make friends, build network, accumulate connections. The relationship should fill void by eliminating loneliness, by providing community, by making you person with people. The void is isolation that would be filled by having enough relationships. The person with extensive social network who still feels lonely is experiencing how quantity of connections doesn't fill void. They have friends, acquaintances, connections across platforms. The relationships are real, but the void is not absence of people that would be filled by having more people. You can be socially connected and existentially empty. The void persists even in community. Information consumption promises to fill void through knowledge acquisition. Read articles, listen to podcasts, consume educational content. The information should fill void by making you knowledgeable, informed, intellectually full. The void is ignorance that would be filled by knowing things. The person consuming massive amounts of information while retaining none of it is experiencing how information consumption doesn't fill void. The articles are read but not remembered. The podcasts are heard but don't stick. The educational content is consumed but doesn't make them feel fuller. The void is not knowledge-shaped gap. Learning things doesn't make you less empty. The information passes through while void remains. Digital consumption is latest void-filling attempt. Shop online, scroll feeds, watch videos, play games. The digital consumption should fill void by providing endless access to endless content and products. Everything you could want is available for purchase or consumption. The void should be impossible in world of infinite digital access. The person scrolling through feeds for hours, consuming content constantly, still feeling empty, is experiencing how digital consumption intensifies void rather than filling it. The content is infinite, which means the consumption can be infinite, which means you never have to stop and face void. But the consumption doesn't fill void. It just provides industrial-scale distraction from it. The void is more present than ever because the consumption that's supposed to fill it is more accessible than ever and clearly isn't working. All consumption-based void filling shares common pattern. Want the thing, buy the thing, briefly feel satisfied, notice void returning, want next thing, buy next thing, briefly feel satisfied, notice void returning, and so on. The things are real, the satisfaction is real, the void's return is real. The pattern suggests the void is not actually possession-shaped. It's not whole that acquiring fills, it's something else. The minimalism movement recognizes consumption doesn't fill void and tries opposite approach: have less, own less, consume less. The void comes from having too much, from being weighed down by possessions. Eliminate things, embrace emptiness in literal sense, and the existential void will disappear. But the minimalist discovers that having few things doesn't fill void better than having many things. The void is not overconsumption that would be cured by underconsumption. The sparse room is as empty existentially as cluttered room. The person with carefully curated minimal possessions can be as empty as person drowning in stuff. The void doesn't care whether you own 100 things or 1,000 things. Can you consume without expecting consumption to fill void? Can you buy things you need or want while acknowledging that buying them won't eliminate existential emptiness? Can you find consumption useful for what it actually does rather than as void-filling strategy? The acceptance would mean continuing to consume, continuing to buy things you need, want, or enjoy, while releasing expectation that consumption will fill void. The purchase is valuable for what it provides in practical sense, not because it's supposed to eliminate fundamental emptiness. You buy what you need while void persists. You purchase what you want while void remains. You consume what you enjoy while the void continues unchanged. Tonight you can rest from consumption, from trying to fill void through acquisition, from needing to buy next thing to cover emptiness. The void doesn't need your purchases to fill it. The void is here regardless of what you own or don't own. Tonight you can acknowledge that the void they've been failing to fill isn't possession-shaped. The emptiness is still there, unchanged by your accumulations, and it doesn't need fixing through further consumption. Continuing in next response due to length. Connection as void filler. Trying to fill emptiness with other. You try to fill the void with connection. If you can just find the right relationship, the right community, the right belonging, then the loneliness at the center will be replaced with connection's fullness. You seek people, build relationships, create bonds, and relationships are genuine, valuable, important, but they don't fill the void because the void is not loneliness. That would be cured by connection. You can be deeply connected and still fundamentally empty. The person who feels alone even in relationships is experiencing how connection doesn't fill existential void. They have partner, friends, family. The relationships are real, loving, present, but beneath and beyond the connection, the void persists. They're with people, but still feel profoundly alone. The aloneness is not absence of people that more people would fix. It's existential isolation that connection can't touch. The romantic relationship was supposed to fill the void completely. You find the person, fall in love, commit to them. The love should fill the emptiness. You're not alone anymore. You're paired, you're connected intimately with another. The void of isolation should be replaced by fullness of partnership. You complete each other, people say. The completion should eliminate the void, but the void doesn't disappear when you partner. You love them, void remains. They love you, void is unchanged. You build life together, void is indifferent. The relationship is real, valuable, sometimes beautiful, but it doesn't fill the void because the void is not absence of romantic partner that partnership's presence would eliminate. You can be in deeply loving relationship and still feel empty at your core. The person in happy relationship who still feels something missing is confused. The relationship is good. They love their partner. Partner loves them. They're compatible and connected. But the void is still there. Something feels empty despite the fullness of relationship. They wonder, is this the wrong person? Should they be with someone else? Is the relationship the problem? But the void is not relationship problem. Changing partners doesn't eliminate existential void. The new relationship provides new connection, but same void. Because the void is not partner-shaped gap. It's more fundamental than relationship satisfaction. The void exists in solitude and in partnership, experienced by single people and married people, felt in isolation and in intimacy. Friendship promises different connection that should fill void. Not romantic love, but platonic connection. Community of friends who know you, support you, share life with you. The friendships should fill void by providing belonging, by creating community, by ensuring you're not alone in world, even if you're alone romantically. The person with many friends who still feels lonely is experiencing how friendship doesn't fill void either. The friends are real. They care. They're present. They provide genuine connection. But the void persists beneath the friendships. You can be surrounded by loving friends and still feel fundamentally isolated, fundamentally empty. The void is not absence of friends that more or better friendships would cure. The community promises collective connection that individual relationships can't provide. Join the group, become part of community, belong to something larger. The community should fill void by eliminating individual isolation, by making you part of collective, by providing belonging that individual relationships don't achieve. The person deeply involved in community who still feels disconnected is experiencing how collective belonging doesn't fill void. They participate in community, contribute to it, are recognized within it, but the void remains. The void is not absence of community that belonging to group would eliminate. You can be integral part of community and still feel existentially empty. The communal connection is real, but doesn't touch the void. The family was supposed to be ultimate connection. Blood relationships, lifelong bonds, people who knew you from beginning. The family connection should fill void by providing unconditional belonging, by being relationships that can't be severed, by ensuring you're connected to people regardless of circumstances. The person with loving family who still feels alone is experiencing how family connection doesn't fill void. The family is there, parents, siblings, relatives who care, but the void persists. The void is not absence of family that family presence would cure. You can come from loving family, maintain close family bonds, and still feel fundamentally empty. The family connection exists in relational realm. The void exists in existential realm. They're separate. The parent-child bond promises deepest connection. Have children, experience unconditional love. Connect with another being who depends completely on you. The parenting connection should fill void by providing purpose. The child needs you, and love. You love the child unconditionally, and meaning. Raising child is meaningful work. The void should disappear in presence of this profound connection. The person who loves their children deeply but still feels empty is experiencing how even parent-child connection doesn't fill void. The love is real, profound, unconditional, transformative, but the void remains. The void is not absence of children that having children would eliminate. You can be devoted parent, experiencing deep parental love, and still feel existentially empty. The parenting fills parental needs, but doesn't touch existential void. The sexual connection promises physical void filling. Connect with another body, experience physical intimacy, merge through sexuality. The sexual connection should fill void by eliminating physical isolation, by providing bodily communion, by making you physically connected to another. The person having regular sex, who still feels empty, is experiencing how sexual connection doesn't fill void. The sex is real, pleasurable, intimate, connecting, but the void returns after orgasm, unchanged by physical intimacy. The void is not absence of sex that more sex would cure. You can have active sex life and remain fundamentally empty. The sexual connection provides sexual satisfaction, but doesn't fill existential void. The codependent connection tries to fill void by merging with another person. If you can't fill void yourself, maybe two people merging can fill each other's voids. Become so connected that boundaries dissolve, that you're not separate individuals but unified unit. The merger should eliminate both individuals' voids by making them one. The person in codependent relationship discovers that two emptinesses don't make fullness. Merging with another empty person creates enmeshed relationship, but doesn't eliminate either person's void. The boundaries dissolve, but the voids remain. The codependency provides intense connection but intensified emptiness. Two people trying to fill each other's voids just means two people exhausting each other with impossible demand that the other fill unfillable emptiness. The social media connection promises to fill void through quantity. If quality connections don't work, maybe quantity will. Accumulate followers, friends, connections across platforms. The sheer number of connections should fill void by ensuring you're never alone, never disconnected, always connected to vast network. The person with thousands of social media connections who feels profoundly alone is experiencing how digital connection doesn't fill void. The connections are numerous but thin. The followers are real but distant. The networks are extensive but unsatisfying. The void is not absence of connections that more connections would cure. You can be maximally connected online and maximally empty existentially. The therapeutic relationship promises professional connection that fills void. The therapist will understand you, help you, provide relationship that finally addresses the emptiness. The therapeutic connection should fill void by addressing its psychological causes, by helping you understand why you're empty, by healing whatever trauma or dysfunction created the void. The person in long-term therapy who still feels empty is experiencing how therapeutic relationship doesn't fill void. The therapy helps, provides insight, addresses issues, improves functioning, but the void remains. Because the void is not psychological problem that therapy solves. Therapy addresses psychological issues in psychological domain. The void is in existential domain. They're related but separate. You can be psychologically healthy and existentially empty. The spiritual community promises transcendent connection. Connect not just with people, but with divine, with universe, with ultimate reality. The spiritual connection should fill void by eliminating separation, by providing ultimate belonging, by making you part of cosmic whole. The void is separation from divine, that spiritual connection would heal. The person deeply involved in spiritual community discovers that spiritual connection doesn't necessarily fill void either. The community provides support. The practices provide benefits. The teachings provide framework. But the void can persist even in spiritual community, even with regular practice, even with deep belief. Because the void is not absence of spiritual connection that spiritual community would provide. The void might be more fundamental than what connection, even spiritual connection, can address. Different connection strategies share pattern. Seek the connection, establish the connection, feel briefly filled, notice void returning. Seek deeper or different connection, establish that, feel briefly filled, notice void returning. The connections are real. The brief filling is real. The void's return is real. The pattern suggests void is not actually connection-shaped. It's not whole that relationship fills. It's something else. Can you connect with others without expecting connection to fill void? Can you build relationships while acknowledging that relationships won't eliminate existential emptiness? Can you find connection valuable for what connection actually provides, rather than as void-filling strategy? The acceptance would mean continuing to connect, continuing to build relationships, deepen bonds, create community, while releasing expectation that connection will fill void. The relationships are valuable for the connection itself, not because they're supposed to eliminate fundamental emptiness. You love while void persists. You befriend while void remains. You belong while void continues unchanged. Tonight, you can rest from connection seeking, from trying to fill void through relationships, from needing others to eliminate your emptiness. The void doesn't need connection to fill it. The void is here regardless of who you're connected to or disconnected from. Tonight, you can acknowledge that the void isn't loneliness, isn't isolation, isn't absence of people. The emptiness is something else entirely, and connection, however genuine, however deep, doesn't make it go away. Pleasure-seeking, trying to fill the void with sensation. You try to fill the void with pleasure. If you can just experience enough pleasure, enough sensation, enough stimulation, then the emptiness will be replaced with fullness of felt experience. You seek pleasure constantly: food, sex, entertainment, substances, whatever provides sensation. And pleasure is real, genuinely enjoyable, but it doesn't fill the void because the void is not absence of pleasure that more pleasure would cure. You can experience intense pleasure and return immediately to emptiness. The person who feels empty the moment pleasure ends is experiencing how pleasure-seeking doesn't fill void. The meal is delicious while you're eating it, but the moment the meal ends, the void returns. The sex is pleasurable during, but after orgasm, the void is back. The entertainment is engaging while consuming it, but when the show ends, the emptiness reappears. The pleasure is real, but temporary, and the void is permanent. The pleasure was supposed to be fulfilling. You pursue pleasure. You experience it. The experience should satisfy you. The fulfillment of desire, the satisfaction of craving, the enjoyment of sensation, all of this should fill the void, at least temporarily, and it does, for moments. But the moments pass so quickly, and the void returns so reliably, that you're always chasing next pleasure. The food pleasure promises sensory fulfillment. Eat delicious food, experience taste satisfaction, fill literal physical emptiness with food. The eating should fill the void. You're literally filling your empty body with substance. But the person who eats for emotional reasons discovers that physical fullness doesn't create existential fullness. You can be stuffed with food and still feel empty. The void is not hunger that eating satisfies. It's something else. The person overeating while feeling empty is trying to use food pleasure to fill existential void. The food tastes good, that's real. The eating provides temporary distraction and physical sensation, but the moment the eating stops, the void returns, so they eat again. The overeating is not about physical hunger, it's about trying to fill void that food can't fill. The physical fullness just emphasizes the existential emptiness by contrast. The sexual pleasure promises most intense void filling. Sex is powerful sensation, intimate connection, physical pleasure, emotional intensity. The sexual pleasure should fill void by providing overwhelming sensation that leaves no room for emptiness. During intense pleasure, the void should disappear. The person seeking constant sexual pleasure discovers that sex provides peak experience but doesn't eliminate void. During orgasm, consciousness is consumed by sensation. The void is temporarily eclipsed by intensity of pleasure. But after orgasm, sometimes within seconds, the void returns, often intensified. The contrast between peak pleasure and return of void makes emptiness feel more empty. The sex provided sensation but didn't fill void. The void was just temporarily covered by overwhelming pleasure. The substance pleasure promises chemical void filling. Alcohol, drugs, whatever alters consciousness. The substances should fill void by changing your conscious experience, by providing euphoria, by eliminating negative feelings including emptiness. The chemical intervention directly addresses consciousness where void is felt. The person using substances to fill void discovers that chemical pleasure is most temporary void filling of all. The drug creates altered state, euphoria, relaxation, whatever its effect. The void disappears during the high, but the high ends, often abruptly, and the void returns, often worse. The substance crash can intensify emptiness. The addiction develops because the substance temporarily worked. It did cover the void briefly, but the covering is so temporary that you need constant redosing, and the void between doses becomes unbearable. The entertainment pleasure promises mental void filling. Watch shows, play games, consume content that provides mental pleasure through engagement, excitement, distraction. The entertainment should fill void by occupying consciousness completely, by providing mental pleasure that leaves no room for emptiness, awareness. The person binge-watching series to avoid emptiness is using entertainment as void filler. The show is engaging, that's why it works temporarily. The consciousness is consumed by narrative, by characters, by visual stimulation. The void disappears behind the screen, but the show ends, where you need to stop watching, and the void returns instantly, often more intensely. The contrast between entertainment-occupied consciousness and empty consciousness makes the emptiness more apparent. The adrenaline pleasure promises void filling through intensity. Extreme sports, risky behavior, anything that provides intense sensation through danger or excitement. The adrenaline rush should fill void by flooding consciousness with intensity that overwhelms emptiness, by making you feel intensely alive in ways that eliminate void. The person who becomes adrenaline junkie is chasing intensity to cover void. The dangerous activity provides genuine rush. The body floods with chemicals, consciousness narrows to immediate moment. The intensity is real, but the rush fades, the intensity passes, and the void returns, unchanged. The adrenaline covered void temporarily, but didn't fill it. Now they need more intense experiences to get same void covering effect, because tolerance develops to intensity just like to drugs. The new pleasure promises to work better than old pleasure. You've exhausted the pleasure from this source, so you need new source, new foods, new sexual partners, new substances, new entertainment, new intensity. The new pleasure should fill void that old pleasure stopped filling. But new pleasure follows same pattern, briefly covers void, becomes familiar, stops covering void, requires novelty again. The person constantly seeking novelty in pleasure is experiencing pleasure tolerance. The new restaurant is exciting until it becomes familiar. The new relationship is intense until it becomes ordinary. The new drug is powerful until your body adapts. The new show is engaging until you've watched it. The pleasure requires novelty to maintain void covering capacity, which means you need infinite new pleasures to maintain infinite void covering, which is impossible. Eventually you run out of new pleasures, or the novelty seeking becomes exhausting. The hedonism promises that pleasure maximization will fill void, not avoiding pleasure or seeking it moderately, but pursuing pleasure as life's goal. Maximize pleasure, minimize pain, fill life with as much pleasure as possible. The hedonistic life should be so full of pleasure that void has no room to manifest. The person living hedonistically discovers that pleasure maximization doesn't eliminate void, it just makes void more obvious by contrast. When your life is organized around pleasure seeking, the void's persistence despite maximum pleasure is more frustrating. You've optimized for pleasure and still feel empty. The hedonism reveals that void is not lack of pleasure because maximum pleasure doesn't eliminate it. The aesthetic pleasure promises more refined void filling. Not base pleasures, but aesthetic ones. Art, music, beauty. The aesthetic experience should fill void by providing refined pleasure, by engaging higher faculties, by creating meaningful pleasure rather than empty sensation. The void is result of pursuing wrong pleasures, and aesthetic pleasure is right kind. The person pursuing aesthetic pleasures discovers that refined pleasure doesn't fill void better than base pleasure. Listening to Bach is more sophisticated than eating donuts, but both provide temporary pleasure that doesn't fill void. The aesthetic pleasure is valuable for its aesthetic qualities, but it doesn't touch existential void. You can have highly refined taste and remain fundamentally empty. The void doesn't care about the sophistication of your pleasures. All pleasure-seeking shares pattern. Pursue pleasure, experience pleasure, feel briefly satisfied, notice void returning. Pursue next pleasure, experience that, feel briefly satisfied, notice void returning. The pleasure is real, the satisfaction is real, the void's return is real. The pattern reveals that void is not absence of pleasure, that more or better pleasure would cure. The Buddhist analysis says precisely this. Pleasure-seeking can't fill void because pleasure is temporary and void is permanent. Seeking fulfillment through impermanent pleasure means perpetual dissatisfaction. The pleasure arises, peaks, and passes. The void remains throughout. The solution is not better pleasure, but understanding that void isn't problem requiring pleasure solution. Can you experience pleasure without expecting it to fill void? Can you enjoy sensations while acknowledging that enjoyment won't eliminate existential emptiness? Can you find pleasure valuable for pleasure itself, rather than as void-filling strategy? The acceptance would mean continuing to experience pleasure, continuing to enjoy food, sex, entertainment, beauty, while releasing expectation that pleasure will fill void. The pleasure is valuable for the experience it provides, not because it's supposed to eliminate fundamental emptiness. You enjoy while void persists. You experience pleasure while void remains. You seek sensation while void continues unchanged by the sensations you experience. Tonight you can rest from pleasure seeking, from trying to fill void through sensation, from needing next pleasure to cover emptiness. The void doesn't need pleasure to fill it. The void is here regardless of how much pleasure you experience or don't experience. Tonight you can acknowledge that pleasure is temporary and void is permanent, that sensation covers void but doesn't fill it, that pleasure-seeking is exhausting attempt to solve problem that pleasure can't solve. The emptiness is still there, unchanged by your pleasures, patient in its persistence. The spiritual quest, trying to fill the void with transcendence. You try to fill the void with spirituality. If material pleasures don't work, if worldly achievements don't satisfy, maybe transcendence will. Meditate, pray, practice, seek enlightenment. The spiritual path should lead beyond the void, to state where emptiness is transcended, where you merge with divine, where the separate self that feels empty dissolves into cosmic wholeness. The void is illusion that spiritual practice will dispel. The person who turns to spirituality after worldly strategies fail is seeking ultimate void filler. They've tried everything else, achievement, relationships, pleasure, meaning, nothing worked. The void persists. Spirituality is last hope. Maybe the void is spiritual problem requiring spiritual solution. Maybe the emptiness is yearning for divine, separation from source, disconnect from ultimate reality. Spiritual reconnection should fill it. The meditation promises to fill void by eliminating the self that experiences void. If there's no self, there's no void. The emptiness is experienced by ego consciousness, and meditation dissolves ego into undifferentiated awareness. The void should disappear when the experiencer of void disappears. You don't fill the void, you become one with it, recognizing void and self as not separate. The person who meditates for years, still experiencing void, is discovering that meditation doesn't necessarily eliminate emptiness. The practice provides benefits, calm, clarity, insight, but the void can persist through meditation. You can achieve deep states and still feel fundamentally empty. Because the void might not be ego consciousness that meditation dissolves, it might be something more fundamental. The prayer promises to fill void through connection with divine. The void is separation from God, and prayer bridges the separation. Talk to divine, feel divine presence, experience divine love. The connection should fill void by replacing human emptiness with divine fullness. You're empty, but God is full, and connection with God fills you. The person who prays regularly but still feels empty is experiencing how divine connection doesn't necessarily fill void. The prayer is sincere, sometimes powerful, occasionally provides sense of divine presence, but the void persists. The void might be experienced as spiritual dryness, dark night of soul, distance from divine, but it's still void. The prayer doesn't consistently fill it, because void might not be distance from divine. That prayer closes. The religious conversion promises complete void filling. Accept faith, join religion, commit to beliefs and practices. The conversion should transform you, fill you with Holy Spirit, eliminate emptiness through divine presence. The void is result of being outside religion, and entering religion should fill it with faith. The person who converts to religion hoping to fill void discovers that faith doesn't automatically eliminate emptiness. The beliefs are sincere, the practices are followed, the community is supportive, but the void can persist even within religious life. The void is reinterpreted through religious framework, but not eliminated by it. The emptiness becomes theological problem. Why doesn't faith fill me? Why do I still feel empty despite believing? Maybe my faith is insufficient. Maybe I'm not faithful enough. Maybe I need more practice, more prayer, more devotion. The mysticism promises direct experience of divine that will definitively fill void. Not just faith, but actual experience. The mystical experience should fill void by providing undeniable contact with ultimate reality, by dissolving separation between self and divine, by creating union that eliminates emptiness. The void is separation that mystical union overcomes. The person who has mystical experiences, genuine moments of unity, of dissolution, of transcendence, discovers that even mystical union doesn't permanently eliminate void. The experience is profound, transformative, indescribable, but the experience ends. You return to ordinary consciousness, and the void returns. The mystical experience was temporary, and the void is permanent. The union was real but not lasting. The emptiness returns after transcendence fades. The enlightenment promises permanent void filling, not temporary states but permanent transformation. Achieve enlightenment and the void disappears forever because you've recognized ultimate truth, transcended ego, become one with reality. The enlightened person doesn't experience void because they've realized the void is illusion. The person pursuing enlightenment is pursuing permanent void elimination, but enlightenment is elusive, maybe impossible, definitely rare. Most spiritual seekers never achieve it. They practice for years, decades, lifetime. The void persists through the practice. And if enlightenment is achieved, different traditions describe it differently. Some say void disappears. Some say you realize void was never problem to begin with. Some say emptiness is ultimate nature of reality, and enlightenment is accepting this rather than transcending it. The spiritual materialism is particular trap. You collect spiritual experiences, spiritual achievements, spiritual identity. The spirituality becomes another form of void-filling consumption, accumulating practices, teachers, experiences, credentials. You're spiritual seeker, and seeking is identity, and identity is void filler. But the spiritual seeking is still seeking, still trying to fill void, still not actually filling it. The person with extensive spiritual resume, multiple traditions studied, numerous retreats attended, various teachers followed, still feeling empty, is experiencing how spiritual accumulation doesn't fill void. They've tried everything spiritually. The practices are genuine, the experiences are real, the commitment is sincere, but the void remains. Because spiritual seeking is still form of void-filling attempt, and void is not spiritual problem that spiritual solutions solve. Different spiritual paths promise different void-filling mechanisms. Buddhism says recognize emptiness as nature of reality. Stop trying to fill void. Accept impermanence. Hinduism says realize ultimate self is identical with divine. Void is false identification with temporary ego. Christianity says accept divine love. Let grace fill you. Void is separation from God. New Age says raise vibration. Manifest abundance. Void is low-frequency state. But all share assumption that void is problem and spirituality is solution. The person who tries multiple spiritual paths discovers they all address void differently, but none eliminate it consistently. Each path has adherents who claim void disappeared through their practice, but each path also has practitioners who remain empty despite years of practice. The void's elimination through spirituality is inconsistent, suggesting void might not be spiritual problem with spiritual solution. The spiritual bypass is using spirituality to avoid psychological or practical problems. The void might be partly depression, partly unmet needs, partly realistic response to difficult circumstances. But instead of addressing these, you spiritualize them. The emptiness is spiritual lesson, the suffering is karma, the problems are illusion. The spirituality becomes excuse for not addressing actual issues that contribute to void experience. The person using spirituality to avoid therapy, to avoid making life changes, to avoid confronting difficult truths, is experiencing spiritual bypass. The spirituality might address real spiritual needs, but can't address non-spiritual needs. If part of void is depression, no amount of meditation cures depression. You need therapy or medication. If part of void is loneliness, no amount of prayer creates human connection. You need relationships. The spiritual practice can coexist with practical needs, but spirituality alone might not be sufficient. The dark night of soul is spiritual tradition's acknowledgement that void persists even in spiritual practice. The mystics describe periods of profound emptiness despite deep practice. God seems absent. Prayer seems useless, practice seems meaningless. The dark night is not sign of failed practice but stage in practice. The void is not overcome but endured, and endurance is part of path. But this means void isn't eliminated by spirituality, it's encountered within spirituality. Can you practice spiritually without expecting practice to fill void? Can you meditate, pray, seek, while acknowledging that practice might not eliminate existential emptiness? Can you find spiritual practice valuable for what it actually provides, rather than as void-filling strategy? The acceptance would mean continuing spiritual practice, if practice is meaningful to you, while releasing expectation that practice will fill void. The practice is valuable for its actual benefits, not because it's supposed to eliminate fundamental emptiness. You practice while void persists. You seek while void remains. You experience transcendent states while void continues unchanged by temporary transcendence. Tonight, you can rest from spiritual seeking, from trying to fill void through transcendence, from needing enlightenment to eliminate emptiness. The void doesn't need spiritual practice to fill it. The void is here regardless of how spiritually advanced or undeveloped you are. Tonight, you can acknowledge that spirituality addresses spiritual needs but might not eliminate existential void, that transcendent experiences are temporary and void is permanent, that the seeking itself might be a form of void avoidance rather than void filling. The emptiness is still there, unchanged by your spiritual efforts, patient even in face of your transcendence attempts. The distraction economy, staying too busy to notice the void. You try to fill the void by avoiding it entirely. If you stay busy enough, distracted enough, occupied enough, you never have to experience the void. Don't fill it, just don't encounter it. The modern world offers infinite distraction opportunities. You can stay perpetually occupied, never still, never quiet, never facing the emptiness. The distraction doesn't fill void but keeps you from noticing it's there. The person who can't sit still, can't be quiet, can't be alone without distraction, is avoiding void through busyness. The void is there. They know it's there. They've felt it in moments when distraction failed. They know what happens when they stop moving, stop doing, stop consuming content. The void appears, so they don't stop ever. The constant activity is not about productivity. It's about void avoidance. The busy schedule promises to crowd out void. If every moment is filled with activity, there's no moment for void to manifest. Wake early, schedule everything, rush between obligations, collapse exhausted. The exhaustion is almost welcome. Too tired to feel void. Sleep comes quickly. Repeat tomorrow. The busyness is protective routine that keeps void at bay through constant occupation. The person whose calendar is completely full but who feels empty anyway is discovering that busyness doesn't actually eliminate void, it just prevents you from paying attention to it. The void is there throughout the busy day, beneath the activities, waiting in the gaps between meetings. You're not filling void with busyness, you're using busyness as distraction from permanent void that persists regardless of your schedule. The work fills time that would otherwise reveal void. Come home from work, immediately turn on TV, check phone, start cooking while listening to podcast, eat while watching screen, browse while TV plays, check social media, scroll until tired enough to sleep. Every moment is occupied, no moment of stillness, no moment when you're just here, present, without distraction, because those moments reveal the void. The person who needs constant content consumption is using entertainment to avoid emptiness. The shows, videos, articles, posts, all of it occupies consciousness, so void can't. The moment the content stops, the void appears, so the content never stops. The phone is always there, the screen is always on, the stimulation is constant, the void is avoided but not eliminated. It's underneath the entire distraction layer, patiently waiting. The social busyness promises to avoid void through constant interaction. Always socializing, always with people, always engaging. If you're never alone, you'll never feel the loneliness. If you're never quiet, you'll never feel the emptiness. The social calendar is full. Every evening an event, every weekend plans, every moment scheduled with people. The void can't appear when you're surrounded by others. The person who socializes constantly, but feels lonely anyway, is discovering that social busyness doesn't eliminate void, it just covers it with people. The void is there during the socializing, beneath the conversation, between the laughs. When everyone leaves, the void is still there, unchanged by all the social activity. The people provided distraction, but not filling. The phone is perfect void avoidance tool. Any moment of potential stillness can be filled with phone checking, waiting in line, phone, stopped at light, phone, waking at night, phone. The phone provides instant distraction from any moment where void might appear. The constant connectivity means constant distraction means the void is never directly experienced. The person checking phone hundreds of times daily is not actually interested in what's on phone most of the time. They're avoiding the moment of not checking, the moment of just being there, without distraction, without stimulation. That moment is dangerous because that's when void appears. The phone checking is compulsive void avoidance, not voluntary information seeking. The multitasking is distraction intensification, not just doing one thing to avoid void, but multiple things simultaneously, working while listening to podcast, while checking phone, while eating. The consciousness is completely occupied, no bandwidth left for void awareness. The multitasking ensures void can't get through the distraction layers. The person who can't do single thing without also doing other things is maximally void avoidant. The distraction layer is so thick that void seems eliminated, but void is just buried under distraction. The moment the multitasking stops, rare moment of doing just one thing, rare moment of doing nothing, the void is there immediately, untouched by all the distraction that supposedly eliminated it. Productivity culture encourages void avoidance through glorifying busyness. Busy is good, busy is important, busy is successful. Not busy is lazy, is wasting life, is failing at productivity. The culture validates your void avoidance strategy by framing it as virtue. You're not avoiding emptiness, you're optimizing time, maximizing productivity, living fully. The void avoidance is culturally encouraged and personally rationalized as success. The person who wears busyness as badge of honor is receiving social validation for void avoidance. They're so busy. They're so productive, they're so engaged with life. This is good, admirable, enviable. But beneath the productive busyness is void avoidance. They're not busy because they love being busy. They're busy because not busy reveals the void they're spending all this energy avoiding. The existential escape into obligation promises to avoid void through necessity. You can't stop to feel void. You have responsibilities, obligations, duties. The children need you, the job demands you, the bills require you. The obligation is not void avoidance, it's responsible adult behavior, except when responsibility is used primarily to avoid ever encountering the void. The person who creates obligations to avoid stillness is using responsibility as distraction. They volunteer for more projects, accept more responsibilities, create more obligations. The busyness is framed as altruism or ambition, but it's partly void avoidance. If they stopped creating obligations, they'd have time for stillness, and stillness reveals void, so they never stop. The obligations multiply, the busyness intensifies, the void is successfully avoided. The digital distraction is purest form, designed specifically to capture attention, to occupy consciousness, to prevent stillness. The apps are engineered for maximum engagement. The feeds are infinite. The notifications are constant. The technology companies have created industrial-scale void avoidance apparatus, and you carry it in your pocket, look at it constantly, allow it to fill every moment that might otherwise be still. The person who feels anxious without phone is addicted, not to phone but to distraction. It provides from void. The phone is portal to infinite distraction. Without it, you're alone with consciousness, and consciousness not occupied by distraction naturally encounters void. The phone separation anxiety is partially void encounter fear. Different distraction strategies share pattern. Fill the moment, avoid the stillness, stay too busy to notice emptiness, keep consciousness occupied so void can't manifest. The distraction is real. The occupation is real, but the void beneath the distraction is unchanged. You're not eliminating void through distraction, you're just not looking at it. But not looking at something doesn't make it disappear. The recognition is difficult. You've organized entire life around void avoidance. Your schedule, your habits, your device usage, your relationships, all partly serving to keep you from encountering the void. The modern world accommodates this infinite distraction available, busyness glorified, stillness rare and suspect. You can avoid void your entire life without ever being aware that's what you're doing. Can you allow moments of non-distraction? Can you experience stillness without immediately filling it? Can you let void be present without avoiding it through busyness? The acceptance would mean allowing stillness, allowing moments of not doing, not consuming, not distracting. The stillness doesn't fill void, but it stops the exhausting constant void avoidance. You encounter void directly, which is uncomfortable, but less exhausting than perpetual distraction. The void is there whether you're avoiding it or facing it. Facing it is at least honest. Tonight, you can rest from the distraction, from needing constant occupation to avoid emptiness, from filling every moment to prevent encountering void. The void is here, has been here all along beneath the distractions. Tonight, you can let the distractions rest and acknowledge what they've been covering. The emptiness is still there, patient and permanent, unchanged by all you're avoiding. And tonight, instead of avoiding it, you can simply let it be. Why the void can't be filled. The fundamental error. The void can't be filled because it's not actually empty. This is the fundamental error, treating void as whole, as lack, as absence, that should be presence. But the void is not missing something that could be added. It's not deficiency that could be remedied. It's not problem with solution. The void is nature of conscious existence, and trying to fill it is trying to change what it means to be conscious being in cosmos that provides no inherent meaning. The person exhausted from trying to fill void is working on impossible task. Not impossible because they're doing it wrong, not impossible because they haven't found right thing to fill it with, but impossible because void is not fillable. It's like trying to fill the ocean. You can pour water in forever, but ocean doesn't become more full because fullness isn't what ocean is missing. Ocean is already what it is. Void is already what it is. Neither needs filling. The void is not whole in your life. It's not space where something should be but isn't. It's background of existence itself, the emptiness against which all experience occurs. You can't fill background because background is what makes foreground possible. The void is like space. You can't fill space with matter because matter exists in space. Space is what allows matter to be. Void is what allows experience to be. The Buddhist teaching of emptiness, sunyata, says this explicitly. The void is not lack but fundamental nature of reality. Everything is empty of independent existence, of fixed essence, of inherent meaning. The emptiness is not problem, it's truth. Trying to fill emptiness is misunderstanding what emptiness is. Enlightenment is not filling emptiness, but recognizing emptiness as how things are and ceasing to treat it as problem. The person studying Buddhist emptiness hoping it will fill their void is misunderstanding the teaching. Buddhism says, the void you're trying to fill is fundamental nature of existence. Stop trying to fill it, accept it. The acceptance doesn't fill void, it changes relationship to void from problem to reality. But Westerners often approach Buddhism as another void-filling strategy, which fundamentally misses the point. The existentialist analysis is similar. Sartre says nothingness is at heart of consciousness, your being for itself, consciousness that's aware of itself, that transcends what it is, that's not identical with itself. This self-transcending creates perpetual gap, perpetual distance from yourself, perpetual non-coincidence with yourself. This gap is experienced as void. It's not problem to fix, it's structure of conscious existence. Consciousness is void. Trying to fill consciousness's void is trying to stop being conscious. The person trying to eliminate self-consciousness through various strategies is trying to eliminate what makes them conscious. The void is not added to consciousness, it's intrinsic to consciousness. Being conscious means being aware of yourself as object, which creates distance from yourself as subject, which creates gap, which is experienced as void. The void and consciousness are not separate. You can't eliminate void without eliminating consciousness. The cosmic perspective reveals why void can't be filled. The universe is vast, ancient, indifferent. You're tiny, temporary, meaningless, at cosmic scale. The void is recognition of this. You're cosmically insignificant. Your life has no cosmic importance. Nothing you do matters at universal scale. This void can't be filled by anything you do, because the problem is not what you do, but scale mismatch between human desire for significance and cosmic indifference to human affairs. The person achieving great things by human standards still feeling empty is experiencing how human achievement doesn't address cosmic insignificance. You can be most successful human ever, still cosmically meaningless. You can matter enormously to other humans, still don't matter to universe. The void that comes from cosmic perspective can't be filled by human accomplishment because cosmic and human scales are incommensurable. The void might be partly evolutionary mismatch. Humans evolved to find meaning, purpose, satisfaction in tribal life, immediate survival challenges, concrete goals. Modern life provides abstract work, artificial problems, distant goals. The meaning-making apparatus that worked for evolutionary environment doesn't work for modern environment. The void is result of being meaning-seeking animal in meaningless modern context, can't be filled because the context is wrong for the apparatus. The person finding traditional cultures seem less void-afflicted is observing possible evolutionary mismatch. Traditional life provides immediate survival meaning, clear social roles, concrete daily purposes. Modern life provides abstract productivity, unclear roles, vague purposes. The void might be partly civilization's byproduct, not personal failing but cultural condition. But you can't fix cultural condition through personal void-filling attempts. The void might be physical, neurochemical, brain structure, bodily state. Depression creates void feeling. Anhedonia eliminates pleasure, so nothing satisfies. Anxiety creates restless emptiness. Various psychological and physical conditions create or intensify void experience. If void is partly physical, trying to fill it through psychological or spiritual means misses physical component. The void would need physical intervention, medication, therapy, bodily healing, not just meaning-making or achievement. The person whose void improved with medication is experiencing how some void is chemical. The medication didn't fill void, it addressed neurochemical imbalance that was creating or intensifying void experience. But not all void is chemical. The chemical intervention helps chemical component, but doesn't address existential component. You can be chemically balanced and still experience existential void because existential void is not chemical problem. The void might be realistic response to void circumstances. Your life actually is empty in concrete ways, isolated, purposeless, unfulfilling work, absence of connection. The void you feel is accurate perception of actual emptiness in your life. The void can't be filled through internal work, because problem is external. You need different life, not different attitude. The void-filling strategies fail because they're addressing internal experience of external problem. The person whose void decreased when life circumstances improved is experiencing how some void is circumstantial. The better job, the real relationships, the meaningful activities, these addressed actual gaps in actual life. The void that decreased was realistic response to void life. But even with improved circumstances, some void remains, suggesting void has both circumstantial and existential components. You can improve circumstances and address circumstantial void without eliminating existential void. The fundamental error is category mistake, treating void as problem requiring solution, when void is condition requiring acceptance. Problems have solutions, conditions have responses. The void is condition, fundamental aspect of conscious existence, background of experience, structure of human being in cosmos. Trying to solve void is trying to solve being human. The solution is not filling void, but changing relationship to void from problem to condition. Can you stop trying to fill what can't be filled? Can you recognize void as structural feature rather than personal problem? Can you accept that void is not whole waiting for contents, but nature of consciousness itself? The acceptance would mean releasing the project of void filling, not because you've failed at it, but because the project is misconceived. The void doesn't need filling because it's not actually empty in sense of lacking something. It's empty in sense of being open, spacious, unstructured. The emptiness is not deficiency, it's neutrality, possibility, space itself. Accepting this doesn't fill void, but makes void bearable by removing burden of trying to fill unfillable. Tonight, you can recognize that years of void-filling attempts haven't filled void because void isn't fillable. The failure is not your failure, it's impossibility of the task itself. Void is not waiting to be filled. Void is just there, permanent feature of conscious existence, unchangeable by your efforts. Tonight, you can stop trying to change what can't be changed and rest in the void as it is. Living with the void, the acceptance. We arrive at acceptance, not celebration, not enjoyment, but realistic acknowledgement. The void is here. It's not going away. Nothing fills it because it's not actually empty in sense of lacking contents. The void is structural feature of conscious existence, and all the meaning-making, achieving, consuming, connecting, pleasure-seeking, spirituality practicing, distraction maintaining, none of it eliminates the void because the void is not problem these activities solve. The first acceptance. The void is normal. Everyone has it. The people who seem fulfilled, satisfied, complete, they have void too. They've just become better at managing it, ignoring it, living with it, or they've accepted it in ways you haven't yet. The void is not sign of your personal failure. It's sign of being conscious, being in cosmos that provides no inherent meaning. The second acceptance. The void is not waiting to be filled. This is crucial recognition. You've been treating void as whole, as absence, as lack. But void is not missing anything. It's not incomplete. It's just the way consciousness is. Spacious, empty, open. Trying to fill it is trying to change fundamental nature of consciousness itself. The project is misconceived from start. The third acceptance. All void-filling strategies provide temporary relief but not permanent filling. The achievement satisfies briefly. The relationship connects temporarily. The pleasure pleases momentarily. The meaning feels meaningful for a while. Then void returns. This pattern is not sign that you're doing it wrong. It's sign that void is permanent and strategies are temporary. The strategies provide valuable things. Achievement, connection, pleasure, meaning, but not void elimination. The fourth acceptance. You can live with the void. You've been living with it already, your entire life. The void has been there always, beneath all the activities, behind all the accomplishments, beyond all the connections. You've survived it. You can continue living with it. The void is uncomfortable, but not unbearable, once you stop expecting it to disappear. The fifth acceptance. Accepting void doesn't mean you stop doing things. You can still achieve, still connect, still seek pleasure, still make meaning. But you do these things for their own value, not as void-filling strategies. The achievement is valuable because achievement is valuable, not because it's supposed to fill void. The difference is subtle but significant. You're living life rather than trying to fill void with life. The sixth acceptance. The void might actually be neutral or even positive once you stop fighting it. The emptiness creates space for experience. The lack of inherent meaning means you can create meaning. The openness allows possibility. The void is not enemy, it's condition that makes conscious life possible. Without void, without emptiness, without this structural openness, consciousness wouldn't be what it is. The seventh acceptance. Fighting void is exhausting. All that effort to fill it, cover it, avoid it, eliminate it, enormous energy expenditure. The acceptance is rest from the fighting. You're not defeated by void. You're just stopping the futile battle against unchangeable condition. The energy previously spent fighting void becomes available for actual living. The eighth acceptance. The void is company. This sounds strange, but consider, the void is constant. It's always there. It's more reliable than achievements, relationships, pleasures, meanings, all of which come and go. The void is permanent companion. Making peace with it is like making peace with permanent roommate. You can't evict them, so you might as well stop being constantly angry about their presence. The ninth acceptance. Mystery of void might be that there's nothing to understand. You keep trying to understand why void is there, what it means, how to eliminate it. But maybe void is just there. No reason, no meaning, no solution. The acceptance is accepting the mystery without needing to solve it. Living with void without understanding it. Being with emptiness without explaining it. Tomorrow you'll wake, and consciousness will return, and void will be experienced as problem again. The cycle repeats. Conscious void avoidance, unconscious void acceptance, conscious void avoidance, unconscious void acceptance. But tonight, in the transition into sleep, you can notice the pattern. The void you fight while conscious is void you accept while unconscious. Maybe the problem is not void, but consciousness's relationship to void. Good night, void conscious being. Tomorrow brings another day of void awareness, another day of potential void fighting or void accepting. But tonight you return to the void as you do every night, as you've done every night of your life, as you'll do every night until you don't wake up and the temporary void return becomes permanent void residence. The void is not waiting to be filled. It never was. The void is just there, permanent and patient, unchanged by all your filling attempts, indifferent to your fighting or your accepting. Tonight you join it again, as you do nightly, surrendering consciousness into unconsciousness, something becoming nothing, void experiencer becoming void. Sleep well. The void is not your enemy. The void is not even really void. The void is just what's there when you're not distracted from it, not running from it, not trying to fill it. Tonight, stop looking for what isn't there. The void is complete as it is, and so are you. Rest in the emptiness that needs no filling. Sleep in the void that's always been home. Return to the nothing that consciousness emerges from and returns to. Tomorrow's void fighting can wait. Tonight, the void can be what it's always been, just there, neither problem nor solution, neither enemy nor friend, just the background of existence, the space in which conscious life occurs. Good night. May sleep bring rest from the exhausting attempt to fill what can't be filled. May unconsciousness bring temporary freedom from consciousness that experiences void as problem. May tomorrow bring continued recognition that void is not waiting to be filled, because void is complete as it is. The void is here. You are here. The difference between them is consciousness. In sleep, the difference disappears. In sleep, you are void, and void is you, and neither is problem. Rest now in this truth that sleep makes obvious. The void needs no filling because the void is not empty. Sleep peacefully, void accepting being. The emptiness is not absence. The void is not lack. The space is not missing anything. You've been looking for what isn't there, some substance to fill the void, some achievement or connection or meaning or pleasure or spirituality or distraction that will finally make the void go away. But the void was never waiting to be filled. It was just there, patiently, permanently, exactly as it needed to be. And tonight, you can stop searching for what you'll never find, because what you're searching for, the void filler, the emptiness eliminator, doesn't exist, has never existed, will never exist. The void is complete. The emptiness is whole. The nothing is sufficient. And you, consciousness experiencing void, can rest tonight from the impossible project of filling the unfillable, completing the complete, making something from nothing that's already everything it needs to be. Rest now, sleep now, return to the void that's always been home. Tomorrow's consciousness returns, and with it returns the sense that void needs filling. But tonight, in the space between waking and sleeping, in the transition from consciousness to unconsciousness, you know the truth. The void is not waiting to be filled. Stop looking for what isn't there. Good night.